We're 4 weeks into the college football season. Now is the perfect time for the first 2026 rookie mock draft. We got to evaluate the early season risers, the players who have maybe fallen off of the draft boards. This is a one round super flex PPR, no tight end premium mock draft. Going to go through 12 of my favorite players at this point in the 2026 rookie class, and I will finish with about a dozen more honorable mentions. Let's do it. Feels good to be back in rookie mock draft mode. If you're not familiar with the channel or the way I do things, I want to start by just pointing out that I do not read purely off of my rankings, okay? This mock draft is a combination of my personal rankings as well as what I expect consensus to be in just general draft patterns that I've observed doing this over the years. That's giving you the best idea where these players may actually go. And I'm going to give my input in my value analysis of each of these players as we go. Now, if you want to see my actual rankings, the link will be in the episode description. You can head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard, and you'll see that I update my Devy 2026 rookie, 2025 rookie, and dynasty rankings weekly. All right, let's get into it here. The 101, it is LaNorris sellers. Now, a big theme that you're going to see throughout this video is that the 2026 class at this point doesn't have any runaway stars. And quite frankly, the beginning of the season, it's been overall disappointing. LaNorris sellers went into the season as my 101. And frankly, he's the 101 by default. He hasn't done poorly in the first few weeks of the season, but he also hasn't absolutely wowed. He's 6'3", 240, so he's got a really great frame. He's thrown 64% completion, 733 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception in his first 3.5 games. He only threw the ball 9 times in the Vanderbilt game when he left early for a concussion, but he did come back the next week against Mizzou and lead South Carolina to a big victory in that game. I've taken your feedback. I'm trying to infuse more stats this year, so I've added some PFF grades into the process. So to give you an idea, 73.6 offensive grade, 68.6 passing grade. That's average. That's good. That's not great. We're definitely going to see some better PFF grades from other quarterbacks that we talk about. So why is he the 101 then? It's his upside. LaNorris sellers brings a ton of upside in terms of his athleticism, and I don't like to overuse the term elite, but he does have elite athleticism. He's elusive while he's running in open space. He's very quick. He can change direction well, and he balances that with awesome contact balance. And that's the difference maker. You know, when you think of somebody who's super elusive, I do think you could compare LaNorris sellers to maybe 80% of Lamar Jackson, right? But if you add in the physicality and the way that Josh Allen runs into the mix, that's what gets this exciting upside. And if I was comparing them one-to-one, I would compare LaNorris sellers much more to Josh Allen, just to give you an idea. He has a solid throwing motion. His lower body still is not quite in sync with the upper body, though. So the throwing motion overall is good, but we need to nail down the lower body part of the mechanics, the feet in particular. His accuracy is inconsistent, and he has not proven that anticipation, and he still struggles to read the field. All that being said, I think LaNorris sellers could possibly reclassify into 2027. He's 2026 eligible. He certainly does not have to come out. In today's NIL landscape, it's more and more enticing to stay for an extra year of college. Nonetheless, at this point today, I do think both the NFL draft community and the fantasy football community views LaNorris sellers at least as a consensus top 3 quarterback, if not QB1 overall in the class. His main competition for quarterback 1 at this point is the player I'm having come off the board 102 in Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. Now, Garrett Nussmeier has upside and a little bit of downside as well, but this is a super flex format, so that's why I have included both him and sellers at the top. 6'1", 205. I actually feel like LSU is selling him a little bit short in this listing. He seems at least 215. I've noticed LSU in general tends to not update weights in particular on players. They'll sometimes be a year or two old. So When I watch Nuss, I think he's closer to 215, but that's an aside. He's a 68% completion passer through the first 4 games of the season. He's thrown for just shy of 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So overall, he's looked pretty good. His PFF grade is 88.4. That's a very good score, and a little bit higher for that passing grade. So overall, very good for Garrett Nussmeier. He grades out 19th in the country. His upside is arm strength. That's very evident when you watch his game. He can win downfield. He's thrown 47% of his balls thrown in the deep field have been big time throws. That is an outstanding number. That's wicked high. It shows his upside potential throwing the ball in the deep field. He leads receivers well at all 3 levels of the field. I think that's what he does best. He's got good anticipation. He's able to throw his receivers open, and not just this year. That was evident on his 2024 tape as well. I say that because he got a big wide receiver upgrade going into this season. The key knock here on Garrett Nussmeier, and you'll see I'm trying to show pros and cons for each of these players. The key knock on Garrett Nussmeier was last year he struggled in tough SEC competition. Well, he showed up. He played really well against Clemson. That win looked awesome week 1. Now Clemson's 1-3 and has gotten torched by some pretty poor offenses. So Garrett Nussmeier is going to head into SEC play starting this weekend against Ole Miss. Not his toughest defensive matchup, but still his SEC play is going to weigh very heavily on how scouts feel about him in terms of NFL draft capital. He's got a gunslinger mentality, and I love that about him, but it does get the best of him sometimes. I will say, in general, he looks a lot more reserved. He looks a lot more poised in terms of decision-making this year compared to last year. And I don't know if that's play calling early season, but it feels like LSU has almost tamed him a little bit. But there are still some poor examples of decision making. You know, you have that ball where he's throwing across his body along the sideline against Florida for no reason in particular, right? There's still some of these examples. You're always going to get that with a gunslinger quarterback, but it does seem like in general he's been able to manage that at least a little bit better this season. At 103, we have probably the biggest early season riser. And maybe this is me over adjusting because this is a player that I have held on to hope for a while now. I drafted him a ton early on when he was a freshman in Devy drafts, and he had to transfer to make it happen. But Justice Haynes is off to a rapid start here. So he's coming off the board 103, 5'11", 210. He's got great size. Running back now at Michigan, 537 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns on just 66 carries to start the season. That's 8.1 yards per carry. And Michigan has actually had some pretty tough matchups here early in the season. Justice Haynes has gone over 100 yards and scored a touchdown against both Oklahoma and Nebraska. So Haynes is really impressed, and he hasn't done it just against, FCS or lower group of 5 opponents. His PFF grade is 21st in the country in rushing, 82.1 offense, 84.9 run. Those are strong numbers. If you are familiar with the PFF scale, we're starting to get into the blue shade. All right, those are good numbers. In terms of the tape, the evaluation, what I focus a little bit more on, he's fluid. He has good contact balance. I like his footwork. He's quick off the snap, and he's speedy. I think we're seeing that speed come through even more this season, but I love his vision. That's what's always sold me on Justice Haynes. That's why I've held out hope for him. Despite not getting a ton of volume at Alabama, he always looked really good when he was on the field, and it's because he's able to see the field well and anticipate space. And you actually haven't seen it a whole ton yet at Michigan, but he has good hands. And if you go back and watch the Alabama tape, you're going to see him used as an actual wide receiver. He lines up out wide. He's able to win in traffic. He's able to run routes. So that dual threat ability is really selling me on Justice Haynes, even if you wouldn't necessarily notice that when you look at the box score. On to the 104, we're going to get to my wide receiver 1 at this point, and that is going to be Jordyn Tyson out of Arizona State. Jordyn Tyson, 6'2", 200. If you're talking high floor prospects, for anybody that we've mentioned so far, I think Jordyn Tyson comes with the highest floor. And at this point in the process, that is appealing. I don't mean to say that as a knock, right? I don't know that he's going to be, a week in, week out top 8 wide receiver scorer for fantasy football purposes next season or at any point in his career. But I do see somebody who will be very consistently in the top 24 of scoring, and that is super valuable. Through the first 4 games for Arizona State, he has 31 receptions, 357 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That might sound solid on its own, but let's put it in the context of the Arizona State offense. He has 47% of Arizona State's receiving yards. So Sam Levitt is just hyper targeting and hyper relying on Jordyn Tyson, and you can't really blame him. Tyson also has 5 of the 6 receiving touchdowns on the season for Sam Levitt. He's got an 82 grade for receiving from PFF, 78.9 offensive grade. What do I like about Jordyn Tyson? It's his reliable hands. I use that term high floor. He's reliable. He attacks the ball. He doesn't let it come to him. Sometimes I'm concerned about Big 12 wide receivers, right? They can get a little bit comfortable playing in space, and then when they get pressed at the next level or they just face tougher competition, not the strongest secondaries in the Big 12, sometimes there's a longer adjustment curve. Well, with Jordyn Tyson, the fact that he attacks the ball, he goes at it, he's not just relying on that lower level competition to create that space for him. That is encouraging for me. When I watch that tape, I'm always trying to put the player in the context of the defenses they're playing. He's a quick player. He's got good vertical athleticism, right? So he's able to go up and get the ball. He's 6'2", but with his frame and wingspan, he'll play a little bit closer to 6'3 and a half, I find at times. And for a guy that's that size with quick and verticality, sometimes they play out of control. I don't think Tyson does. I think he's got good body control, and I really like his ability to win at all 3 levels of the field. So again, just kind of pulling a stat here. He has 3 receptions in the deep field, 20-plus yards downfield. He grades 95.7. It's on a scale of 100. Again, these are PFF grades. That's fantastic, folks. He has 7 receptions in the midfield. That's 11 to 20, 89.1. 11 receptions in the short field. That's 0 to 9. His grade is actually pulled down by the fact that he has 10 receptions near the line of scrimmage, at or near the line of scrimmage. So if you take into account his ability to win in the short, mid, and deep field, where it really matters, Jordyn Tyson looks even more impressive when you combine both the tape and the stats on this one. All right, 105. Some folks might have thought that he would be my running back 1. He's close. I don't like him as much as Justice Haynes, but I do still like Jeremiyah Love out of Notre Dame. So he's coming off the board 105 here, 6'0", 214. He's got a good frame, 284 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. That's 5.5 yards per carry, 8 receptions for 79 yards and a touchdown in just 3 games that Notre Dame has played. Good offensive and run grades here from Jeremiyah Love. He's a well-rounded runner. I think that's the term that really comes through. And that's why I think he's going to hang around this top 50 NFL draft capital conversation. He's a well-rounded runner, and he's a good extension of the passing game. He attacks open gaps. He sees space well. He, I think, lacks that high-end athleticism. He can look slow off the snap at times, specifically this year. It wasn't a problem for me last year. I think overall, Jeremiyah Love has gotten off to a bit of a slow start this year, but I think he's got plenty of time to get that momentum back. And again, kind of that well-rounded, balanced, higher floor type guy. If you're enjoying this video, folks, I want to encourage you. I have a totally free newsletter that I put out each and every Tuesday morning. It gives you a roundup of Devy risers and fallers each and every week. It gives you dynasty updates and waiver wire targets. Again, it's totally free. You can head on into the link is in the episode description. It's just rookiebigboard.com. It's a really awesome resource and a way to stay up to date with everything that I'm doing. On to the 106 here. We're going to go Carnell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. And I'll say before I get into Carnell Tate, everybody that I've mentioned in these first 6 picks, I consider to be in the same tier. It's one thing that I am very focused on when I create my rankings is that players are built into tiers based on their projected fantasy scoring when they get to the NFL. And all of these guys are in the same tier. So that's 101 through 106. Getting into Carnell Tate, 6'3", 195, Through the first 3 games, he has 219 yards, 3 touchdowns on just 12 receptions. Ohio State's played very low-level competition, so they haven't needed Carnell Tate to go, absolutely off yet. But he is averaging 18.3 yards per reception. And the key is to be able to see Carnell Tate featured a little bit more once Ohio State gets into the heart of their schedule. And that's what's great about doing the rookie mock draft at this point in the season, is that we're able to look ahead, right? October is a huge month for a lot of these prospects, and you better believe we're going to circle back at the end of October with another mock draft. Solid PFF grades for Carnell Tate as well. He's a really reliable target. I love his ball tracking ability. I love his ability to adjust to the ball, especially his ability to adjust to the ball late. He wins position. I love when wide receivers consistently win position. It's awesome if they can rely on their, ball tracking ability or their athleticism to make up for lost position. But when you're winning position in the Big Ten, it makes me a lot more confident you're going to be able to win position and create space at the NFL. And that's so critical for fantasy football production. I love his ability to win in traffic. That suggests versatility at the next level. He's got smooth speed. He's a fluid athlete, and he wins into the deep field. So I have no knocks on Carnell Tate. I think he's a really solid player. He doesn't have the absolute best box score in the world, but he's a really well-rounded guy. And I think he's going to be going in that late first round range, somewhere 18, pick 25, somewhere in that range. But I don't really see him sliding to day 2. He's just the type of guy who's going to rise through the back end of the NFL draft process. All right, getting into the second half of the mock draft here, we're going to move a little bit quicker, but we are talking about a big riser here at 107, and that is Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana, 6'5", 225. He's a Cal transfer, and he has absolutely lit it up early season. 77% completion, 975 passing yards, 14 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. Now, Indiana overall has not played anybody super tough. They did have that massive W against Illinois. Time will tell. We felt good about that Illinois defense, but time will tell exactly if it was an awesome performance for Fernando Mendoza or a bad defensive performance for Illinois. But still, 14 touchdowns to 0 interceptions is awesome through 4 games. He also has 2 rushing touchdowns and 76 rushing yards. So that's a really nice number, especially at the college level, where when he takes sacks, that decreases from his rushing total. 8th in the country in PFF grade in terms of passing. So that absolutely checks off as well. I love his confidence. He's confident passing over the middle of the field. He's confident passing in the intermediate, that 11 to 20 yard downfield range. And if you've been listening to me, you know I absolutely love when my quarterbacks have that ability. Clean throwing motion. He's got a quick release. He's got good pocket presence. So he's not the most mobile athlete, but he's mobile enough to move the pocket. He's mobile enough to evade pressure, and he's mobile enough to scramble and improvise. And that's all he needs, right? They don't all, all your quarterback prospects don't have to have that, LaNorris Sellers type rushing upside like we talked about earlier. Just having that mobility, that creates, a fantasy football floor. 3 rushing touchdowns a season as a fantasy football quarterback, that's enough, right, to be in that quarterback, 10, quarterback 12, quarterback 14 type range. He's got good, and so here's the key. Here's the key with Fernando Mendoza. You look at the Indiana scheme, it's a little simple. It's a little basic. Curt Cignetti is really scheming things up, right? And he's creating awesome opportunity. Now, Fernando Mendoza is managing that and executing that, and that's impressive in and of itself. It's not a knock on Fernando Mendoza, but when you have a scheme like this, your ability to perform in big game situations against tough defenses will be weighted at a higher level from NFL evaluators, right? And that's going to affect draft capital. That's going to affect how high we're willing to take him in our rookie drafts. So Oregon and Penn State, those are the 2 games that Indiana is going to play that are going to mean a ton to the way that we evaluate Fernando Mendoza. We're going to want to keep an eye on that. Oregon is in 2 weeks, Penn State later on in the season. 108 here, it's Makai Lemon. Not enough chatter around the wide receiver out of USC. He's had an awesome start to the season. 5'11", 195, 16 receptions for 438 yards, 18.3 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns, 36% of USC's market share. His PFF grade is 7th in the country, 89.2 receiving is absolutely wild. He's got great lateral quickness, straight line acceleration, steady hands, good ball tracking ability. He wins off the release. He can shake defenders through his routes. And despite the fact that he has that high yards per reception, he actually has a 9.8 ADOT. It's a really odd contradiction in the USC offense. And I think because he has deep field targets and short field targets, that folks are a little worried about that manufactured targets, gimmicky type thing. And I'm very conscious of that. But I think what he's shown downfield has balanced that out well. And so I'm not super concerned about that, at least at this point. I think Makai Lemon, in what I have mentioned, maybe an overall slightly down 2026 class, is a really nice candidate for a back end of the first round rookie pick. All right, on to 109 here, and we are going to go with Nick Singleton. Now, let me explain, because I mentioned off the top, I'm not reading right down my rankings. In fact, there's plenty of players who I think should be, that I would rank in the first round of this mock draft that aren't. We'll get to them in the honorable mentions. But I always try to anticipate trends and anticipate consensus, because that's what gives you a realistic idea of where these players might go off in your rookie draft. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So all of that preface to say, Nick Singleton, 6'0", 224, 179 rushing yards, 4.4 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns in 3 games for Penn State so far this season. They played Nevada. They played Florida International. They played FCS Villanova. Not super impressive. PFF agrees. They have him graded 386th in the country. Not good. What's the upside here? When you watch Nick Singleton tape, you go back to 2024, 2023, 2022. I've watched a lot of Nick Singleton tape because he keeps coming back around. He's an explosive runner, and he can get to top speed quickly. When you pair that explosiveness with a 6'4", 224 frame, folks are going to get excited. When Nick Singleton has an open gap, when he has space, he will shoot that gap, and he has big play downfield acceleration. I mean, he has that breakaway speed that gets folks really excited. In practicality, down to down, he fails to create his own space. He's not a decisive runner, and it frustrates me when he runs. He cannot win leverage. He's got a 224 frame, and he doesn't utilize it well. He'll get stood up way too often. Personally, I think Katron Allen is actually the better runner in this Penn State backfield. Nick Singleton's going to get drafted higher. Nick Singleton is going to be at least a day 2 selection. He's going to go to Indianapolis. He's going to wow. And an NFL coaching staff is going to talk themselves into being the ones that make Nick Singleton work. And maybe they will. But when they do that, and fantasy football managers see the draft capital, they see the combine stats, they're going to draft Nick Singleton. And so I've got him projected as a back end of the first round rookie pick. I wouldn't take him there. But again, I'm trying to give an honest view of where players might go. On to 110, it's John Mateer. Talk about early season risers. He has absolutely lit it up for Oklahoma early on. 6'1", 224. Has completed 67% of his passes for over 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And on top of that, Mateer has 190 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. So 11 touchdowns total here through the first 4 games of the season. And those games included Michigan, where he had exactly 344 total yards. So that's rushing and passing, 3 touchdowns. And then against Auburn, he completed 67% of his passes for 300 total yards and 2 touchdowns. PFF grades check out very high, 86.5 offense, 85.5 passing, 19th in the country. He is wicked fun. I mean, watching John Mateer is a really enjoyable experience. Bursty athleticism. He's got solid speed. By the way, he's listed 6'1", 224. I don't know about that. Maybe 6'0", 215. I think that's a little bit of a generous listing there from Oklahoma. The bigger concern here for John Mateer, he is out indefinitely with hand surgery. So he had to undergo a hand surgery for an injury that he sustained against Auburn. I think the expected timeline is about a month, but that's going to cool his draft stock. Now, he has time to get that back, but for a guy like John Mateer, who, wasn't in this conversation early on and rose into it, keeping that momentum is really important. So it'll be really interesting to see if when he comes back, he's fully healthy, he's got that magic. And anytime there's a hand injury, right, there's always just a little bit extra pause for a quarterback prospect. At 111 here, we've got a player who missed time early on in the season, but now he's back, and that's Antonio Williams out of Clemson. Not a lot of chatter about him because he had just 5 receptions for 49 yards in his first game back this past week for for Clemson against Syracuse. He's 5'11", 190. I'm putting him in here because I really loved his summer scouting. So the tape that I watched over the summer, going back to 2024, he's got a great release. He's speedy off the snap. He's got sticky hands. He wins well in traffic. He wins well downfield, and he can adjust well to balls late, which I really like. The downside to Williams, he's a bit of a stiff receiver. He's got limited yak potential. Last year, at least, where we had a bigger sample size, Williams was primarily deployed along the outside, but I think frame-wise, he's going to need to play a bit more, at least a bit more, inside in the NFL. So I'm always a little bit concerned with when that scheme to frame doesn't always match up, but nonetheless, he's a really talented player. I think he deserved that shout out here at the end. And if you're familiar again with the way I do mock drafts, I always like to save the 112 for, a player who maybe isn't, actually in the consensus right now, but I really want to give a shout out to. I think they're going to rise up the board. And for me, that's going to be Mark Fletcher out of Miami. Now, before I get into Mark Fletcher, I just want to take a quick moment here. If you're enjoying this video, you've watched 26 minutes of it. I didn't even make this ask early on. Just do me a favor. Give it a like, subscribe, and feel free to drop a comment. Ask me about any of these prospects and anybody who I didn't mention either. All right, Mark Fletcher, 6'2", 225, 388 rushing yards on 66 carries. That's just shy of 6 yards per carry for the Miami running back. He's got 5 touchdowns so far this season. Love that PFF grade of 86.1, 8th in the country on run grade. He's a powerful runner. He gets off the snap well. He's got great contact balance. He pushes the pile forward. You see that throughout all of his 2025 tape, but especially if you're watching last week against Florida. I think he's a decisive runner, and I think he sees the field well. All right, on to the honorable mentions here. I've got a laundry list of guys, and maybe somebody that you like isn't even on this list. Again, ask me about them. Drop me a comment. Tell me that I am absolutely selling them short. But here we go. Lightning round style, players who were at least in consideration for the mock draft. A quarterback, Drew Aller against Penn State. Again, hasn't super impressed early on, has the arm strength, has the mobility. He could end up the 101, but there's only 2 games that matter for him, in my opinion. Oregon and Ohio State. He's got Oregon this week, so it was kind of bold timing for me to put this out on Thursday. We'll see if I look like a fool on Monday for leaving him out. Cade Klubnik, loved him preseason, has looked really poor early on. Dante Moore out of Oregon has looked great early season. Oregon has not had a tough opponent. I want to see him perform well against Penn State, and he could be easily in the October mock draft as well. Sam Levitt, Arizona State, he's got his truthers, he's got his hype guys, but he has struggled early on this season. He hasn't looked like that guy that was carrying Arizona State to playoff victories last year. Running back Darius Taylor, he is quintessential round 2 pick for me. I love him. I think he's going to be a high-volume guy, but he's missed time early on in the season with a hamstring injury as well. C.J. Baxter is back and healthy. The Texas offense overall has looked inefficient, but if C.J. Baxter puts it together, he's another guy that's going to absolutely impress in Indianapolis, and he could very easily be a first-round pick. Jonah Coleman is the hot name this week. I've noticed in particular, he's looked good. Washington hasn't played anybody. So again, if he can perform in this same way against Big Ten competition, I'm into it. But at least at this point, I'm tempering expectations there. I love Jacoby Lane. He's averaging like over 28 yards per reception on 9 receptions early on in the season. He was almost my 112 guy, but I have talked about Jacoby Lane a lot. Eric Singleton Jr., really solid, has looked good at Auburn. I think he's going to be a locked-in day 2 guy, top 75 draft pick, but just didn't quite make the cut here. I absolutely love Jaden Greathouse when they throw him the ball. Notre Dame just doesn't throw him the ball, and I don't understand it. It confuses me. I think he's an awesome talent. I think he's easily a first round. I think he's got first round NFL draft talent. But I can't put him in the mock if he's not getting targets so far this season. Aaron Anderson, that's always been my sleeper at LSU. Kind of more of an underneath guy, but super twitchy, fast, wins after the catch, reliable hands, comfortable winning over the middle of the field. So a really great slot wide receiver for the next level. Elijah Surratt, I'm a little bit lower than consensus. I think some folks may have wanted to see Elijah Surratt say where I put Antonio Williams in this mock draft. But he gets his shout out here. Good boundary guy. I just think he's limited athleticism. And I think he's probably more in line for a late day 2 NFL draft selection. A couple tight ends to watch here. Nobody at the level of like a Brock Bowers or anybody that I feel they need to push into the first round. No Tyler Warrens, no Colston Lovelands either, really, at this point at least. But I do like Jack Endries out of Texas. I do like Kenyon Sadiq. He's a little bit more of your athletic build or tight end compared to Jack Endries. And then Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. I've been talking about Eli Stowers a lot. I actually thought he was going to go out in the 2025 NFL draft. So I was chatting him up a lot last year. He's back this year. He's looked really good for Vanderbilt. So there you have it. That is a full first round Superflex PPR mock draft. Really deep dive into those top 12 guys and then ripping through some honorable mentions as well. Again, if you've watched this whole video, make sure you give it a like, drop me a comment, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, rookiebigboard.com. You can get the free weekly newsletter. But if you want the rankings, you want the personalized advice, you want access to the Discord, head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard. Both of those links will be in the episode description. And we're going to be back in October with another mock draft.